Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Toronto-based jazz vibraphonist Michael Davidson and double bassist Dan Fortin. These are two of Toronto's most in-demand musicians and have been playing together for over a decade. Having been hired so often as a team, it made perfect sense for the two of them to focus on their unique musical aesthetic that they've cultivated over all of these years. So, there you go. It's the birth of a new duo and a new album called Clock Radio. This album can be listened to as one long piece or separate songs. Either way, it's great, and they talk about this and more, so dig it.
Hey guys, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz to talk about the new album. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure, Jazz. Thanks for having us on.
You bet. So let's talk about Clock Radio. Talk to me a little bit about the idea, how the idea came to birth, and just kind of the artistic vision for this album.
The initial idea for Clock Radio came from like a couple of years back. I was out in Berlin studying with a great vibraphone player named David Friedman, and during my studies with David, I started to develop a new book of tunes based on some of the things we were working on. And yeah, like after each lesson, I would go home and I'd write another piece. And so pretty soon I had 12 or 13 songs, and it occurred to me that it would be really fun to play them with somebody back in Toronto. And I thought of Dan because we've had a long collaboration. Like, we've been playing together for the last 10 years in different groups, and it just seemed like we could quickly get together some material. And yeah, we got together over 2 months, and we met every week, and we had a recording session at the end, and that's kind of the genesis of the group.
Yeah, I liked it when Michael actually had booked the recording session before he got back from Berlin. So he had this book of music. It was pretty clear we were going to just work on this and get it done really soon, which was really it was pretty cool. And the rehearsal period was really intensive for it too. Yeah.
Why do you guys work so well together?
I don't know. I mean, we played together. Yeah, as Michael was saying, for a decade or so. I guess it all started. We started with a band called Stop Time, which was kind of a jazz rock band with a great drummer named Dan Gaucher and a guitarist named Harley Card. And then beyond that, we made a quartet record under my own name about 4 years ago. And I think, the first time we played together, I think was, when we were in school, and it just something kind of clicked right away. Like we've got a sort of a similar kind of attitude towards time feel, I think, and harmony. So it kind of clicked right away. And through the years, in those bands, we've been often hired kind of the two of us together to play with other people. So with the guitarist David Occhipinti, saxophonist Tara Davidson and Allison Au, the violinist Lynn Homsey. So the duo thing is kind of it's the culmination of having worked together and developed this sort of rapport over the course of a bunch of years.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like what I noticed right away is we seem to have the ability to predict where the other one is going, and we surprise each other. It's like we can kind of read each other's minds, and that was immediately apparent for some reason that I don't understand.
Yeah. It was kind of obvious right off the get-go. And in the case of this record, it was interesting too because we've pretty much always played in bands with a bunch of other musicians. So we thought it would, it's interesting in this kind of, our first kind of collaboration would be so spare. It would just be two musicians, nowhere to hide, so to speak.
What do you want the audience to get from this album? What do you want them to glean from, this project that you guys have put together?
That's a challenging question. My main hope for the audience, because I tend not that I don't consider the audience, but I tend to want to leave it more open to interpretation. So hopefully what we can provide as a duo is a snapshot of our process together, making music, and also we just want it to be hopefully an experience for the listener. So something that encapsulates some of the process of Dan and I playing together, and also just something, like a snapshot of the time that I spent in Berlin developing the material. So hopefully that can provide an experience that makes the audience feel something. I mean, whether they like it or not is another thing altogether, but hopefully there's an experience that they can follow along with and enjoy it or not enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think the record was sort of conceived as, instead of like a collection of individual pieces, it's sort of like a suite. The compositions, there's sort of like there's thematic material that recurs, but we also kind of approach our improvisation that way. So the improvising across the whole record will refer to other pieces and other improvisations. So we really like to think of this album as being like one kind of long track. So it's like, it's a deep dive. And for me, those tend to be my favorite albums. They tend to be the ones that like grow on you and also like take some time to kind of dig into. And I think that's sort of a central part of making this record as well.
And in fact, on Saturday we had our official release concert for this album, and we attempted to play the entire record as a suite, and it definitely came off really well.
Yeah, no, it worked quite naturally. We weren't really entirely sure how that was going to work in terms of in terms of the transitions between the songs and so, yeah. It's cool though. I mean, I feel like that's a central crux of this partnership and of this record is trying to, I think we try to keep each other on our toes a little bit, not down to details too. We wanted to do the concert in a venue that we don't usually play, just to kind of keep things not too comfortable, basically. So there's some risk at hand,
and to maybe get some different people to come out.
Yeah, totally, and to try to find different audiences.
Well, hey, gentlemen, thank you for opening up about Clock Radio, talking about the process, the origins, playing it live. I really appreciate your time. Good luck with the album, and I'm looking forward to spinning it on Neon Jazz.
Hey, thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Canada, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Michael and Dan for their time, their music, and their cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.